Hello ladies and gentlemen, today I want to talk about a few extra leaks that we recently got, and as well as my thoughts on the future of Silverwolf's team. Right, because this is a pretty big topic as of current, and I thought I'd just make an entire video on it, especially since I am someone who wants to end up getting Silverwolf. Right, now if you want the quick TLDR without any, context, Silverwolf's future best-in-slot team will likely remain with Sparksy and Yao Guang, and the only upgrade she'll get on her team is an Elation sustain, likely near the end of version 4. Right. Now, this isn't backed, obviously, by absolutely nothing. One, Yao Guang is basically the EMC upgrade, and whether people want to believe it or not, that is simply the case. Similar to RMC was the first character to introduce us into the true damage mechanic that 3.x had, right? And on top of this, he was also a hyper carry buffer. When we look at what is the so-called RMC upgrade, well, that is Cyrene. What differentiates these two? What differentiates them is that even though they both have true damage, Cyrene is an AoE support, right? When you compare Yao Guang and EMC, from the new leaked Herda cone, EMC is a hyper carry buffer. This means his ultimate and his skill can only target one specific ally, right? So EMC is taking after RMC and also has elation damage buffing. Yao Guang also has elation damage buffing, but also has other gimmicks that make her better with elation teams, and she's the AoE buffer instead of being a hyper carry buffer. These two are incredibly similar, right? Really similar to the differences between RMC and Cyrene, which is why I'm so confident Yao Guang will be staying on this team, especially with how SP positive she is, specifically in a team with Sparksy. Right, once you get 3 or more Elation characters and you're in a team with Sparksy using Yao Guang, her SP positivity ramps up a fuck ton, which is going to be super useful for punchline generation for Silverwolf. I just don't imagine them replacing Yao Guang down the line at all. However, the sustain slot is 100% open, right? Now, that's not the only evidence I have. We as well have Anon. Now, what Anon originally said at the beginning of, or, actually a few weeks ago, is that from 4.0 to 4.2, there would be mostly Elation characters. Right. Now, how did this end up aging? Ended up aging pretty well, right? 4.0 is completely Elation, 4.1 is only Ashvale who's Hunt, and then 4.2 is also completely Elation. Right, so there was only one character within these 3 patches that wasn't Elation. Why does this matter? Well, Anon made another leak recently using the same wording that Elation will not have that many characters anymore for the rest of version 4, and that it'll mostly be characters of other paths, right? So if this is consistent with how the previous leak ended up being, we are probably only going to get 1 or 2 more Elation characters for the rest of this version, and that's it. And this does make sense because now that we're at 4.1, there's a lot of teams that are currently in the works, right? We now have leaked that Pearl and Blade will likely be the 2 characters for 4.3. Blade is supposedly Erudition and his own hyper carry, and then Pearl is obviously a sustain, right? After this, you have Himiko's team, the second main push. They got to start building up her team as well, similar to Phenon. And then they also need to finish the follow-up team, which has Ashvale in it. So there's already 3 DPS's teams being worked on for the second half of version 4, not really leaving much more space for any other teams, right? My guess is Nihilux will be an Elation sustain, and this is why she was delayed so much further down to 4.x, and Sampo, if he does exist, will be an Elation DPS, right? The reason I believe this is it would be similar to an Evernight situation. Sampo would be the last DPS of the version. He'd technically be like a 3rd main push similar to Cyrene. However, I don't think he'd be supportive. I think he would be a DPS. However, if there's no Sampo, I'm gonna say there's only one other Elation character being an Elation sustain for the rest of this version. Right. The reason I think it's Nihilux is because, one, this game loves selling mono woman for their best teams, right? If you look at Firefly's current best in slot team, including Sustain, it's all woman, right? If you look at Cassie's mono Remembrance, it's all woman. So the exact same thing would apply here. However, not only this, if Nihilux is the Elation Sustain, this might not even be that important, but Nihilux has white hair. Yao Guang has white hair. Sparksy has white hair. Silverwolf, not so much, but close enough, right? This would also exactly match, similar to like the entire pink hair thing a lot of people liked with Mono Rem, but for the Mono Elation team, it would be Mono White, right? So I think Nihilux makes the most sense at this point as an Elation Sustain in the future, and she will probably be the one who fully completes this Silverwolf team. And I do think they will add SP positivity either on Silverwolf SP or the Sustain or both to make Sparksy feel as smooth as possible, eating up the SP every single turn that she gets. And this is likely when Silverwolf will become the strongest DPS in the entirety of the game. Right, or close to it, because let's be honest, it's usually actually the last DPS of a version that's stronger. You know, don't tell people I said that, but like Fei Xiao, Evernight, they're kind of better than those Shield Annie teams, but whatever, I digress. Right, so that is the future of Silverwolf's team in my opinion. Yes, Sparksy and Yao Guang will remain best in slot, because if you replace Yao Guang with like anybody else, I imagine the SP gen just goes down a fuck ton and it just doesn't work, right? Here's the thing, when it comes to HSR, it's obvious these days that when they really want to sell like a main push team, they want everybody to do damage. I've seen a lot of people saying online and on Reddit and shit like, oh, it's going to be EMC, it's going to be some hyper carry buffer. Like, no, okay, no. They're not going to do this for the main push team that is trying to run mono Elation so everybody can do damage. Why would you have a hyper carry buffer instead of an AoE buffer? Especially since action advance on Elation teams does not matter as much because of the fact that AHA instants exist, and these things will activate no matter what, scaling off the speed of 3 Elation characters on your team. So they already get out of turn hits anyways when it isn't their turn, so AA isn't as important, right? So that will be Silverwolf's team. When it comes to Evanesia, I do think she is simply not going to get an upgrade over EMC. For those who don't know what I mean, she recently got leaked with one of her best in slot teams that it seems Hoyo wants to sell her with, being Yao Guang, EMC, and Buff Tuohuo. Now, I do not think Buff Tuohuo is going to stay as a best in slot for this woman, okay? Same thing with Silverwolf. When the Elation Sustain comes out, she'll probably be best in slot for both of these Elation DPSs. Now, will the jump difference be the same between Silverwolf and Evanesia? No, the Elation Sustain will probably do more for the main push, exactly like how Hyacinth is a way bigger jump for Cassie as compared to any of the other HP scalers. However, still, it ended up being an upgrade for Evanesia, and no, she probably won't get anybody to replace EMC. You'd probably have to take the hit and replace EMC with someone else if you want to use another version of MC, similar to like what a lot of other people do, you know, right now, right, with the Chrysos heirs. So if they give her, like, let's say Sparksy's Trace, where she only needs 3 Elation characters instead of mono Elation, then this would work. Like, you could get rid of EMC, and yes, it might be weaker. However, it is what it is. It's kind of like an Anoxa situation, right? If you run Sustainless Anoxa, you know that even though Cyrene is technically the RMC upgrade, it's best to run RMC plus Cyrene together with Anoxa, with Ceridra, because that is his absolute peak performance, and it makes him significantly stronger. So it's not necessarily that Yao Guang needs to replace EMC and be better than him in every single scenario. It's just that Yao Guang is an AoE buffer while EMC is a hyper carry buffer. Since Evanesia is seeming to be a hyper carry DPS as compared to the mono Elation team where everybody does DPS, EMC probably fits more so in Evanesia's team as compared to Silverwolf's team. Does this mean you can't use EMC for Silverwolf? No, you probably can use her as an alternative to either Sparksy or Yao Guang. However, it will not be better than either or. Of course, you sustainless players out there, similar to the Anoxa thing I just mentioned, will probably just use Sparksy plus Yao Guang, plus EMC with Silverwolf if you really are trying to sweat it out and get the max performance of the team. However, in a normal sustain team, which is what 99% of people who watch my content play, I would say that EMC is not going to be on Silverwolf's team, or at least won't be a best in slot or get an upgrade in Silverwolf's team like a lot of people think. Once again, there simply is no fucking space to continue making more and more Elation units to like replace Yao Guang or Sparksy in a Silverwolf team. It's just not gonna happen, right? So let me know what you guys think down in the comments. In my opinion, this is the future of the Silverwolf team. Also a little bit about Evanesia. No, buffed Woho will not remain best in slot for these characters. She'll probably stay best in slot for a good bit, since Anon did say it's going to be a long time until we get the next Elation unit, so sustain's probably decently far away. However, I'd recommend most people wait, because unlike Yao Guang, where like it's dead obvious she isn't getting replaced if you read her kit, buffed Woho is an entirely other situation. She's just going to be a temporary best in slot because there's no other option that's better in my opinion. Right. Love you all. Hope you have a great day. Hope you have a great night. Peace out.